Hi, this is Amy Romeo from the jewelry and craft making blog amyromeo.com, and on this channel I show you fun and easy jewelry making and craft projects. So if you've been a follower of the blog or my YouTube channel, you know that I make a lot of faux leather earrings. And a question I get a lot is, what do you put on the back? Because sometimes the back of the faux leather earring material is either an ugly color or the material's thin and you want to thicken it up a little bit. So if you've had that question, then this video is for you. Today I'm going to be showing you 4 different ways to put something on the back of faux leather earrings. So if you're ready to get started, hit that subscribe button and let's dive right in. So the first technique I'm going to show you is to make a copy of the bottom earring layer shape and cut it from heat transfer vinyl or foil iron-on and then press it onto the back of the earring. And for this demonstration, I'm going to be using this 3-layer petal shape. It's one of my earring templates in my shop, and I'll put a link down below if you want to grab it and try that out for yourself. But I've already cut the first 2 layers from faux leather, so I'm just going to go ahead and hide those over here on the layers panel just to keep it simple. So these are the back layer shapes, and I want to make copies of those and mirror them. So I'm going to select one of the shapes by clicking on it, and then I'm going to hold the control key and select the other shape so they're both selected at the same time, and I'm going to click on duplicate, and that's going to make a copy of those shapes. I'm going to give them a different color just so I can keep them straight in my mind, and I know that these are going to be the back vinyl or foil iron-on layers. So now that I've got these 2 shapes, I'm going to select them again and I'm going to flip them. This is going to mirror them so they're reverse size and they fit perfectly on the back of the earring. So now I have the 2 shapes that are going to cut from faux leather to be the 3rd layer of the earring, and then I have the 2 shapes that are going to cut from foil iron-on that are going to go onto the back of the earring. And I'm going to click make it. And I always mirror my mats because these materials cut face down. And I'm not going to go through how I cut faux leather with these 2 mats, but I do have a video that has all of my tips and tricks on how I cut faux leather with a Cricut, and I'll link to that video so you can check that out. So I'm going to go ahead and click continue. I'm going to cut both of these mats and weed out the shapes, and then I'll show you how I put the earrings together. So I've cut the bottom layer of the earrings out of the faux leather, and I've also cut a mirrored shape of the bottom layer of earrings out of foil iron-on. So I've matched up, I cut this apart so that I can separate them, and then I've matched up the front and the back. I'm going to layer the foil iron-on onto the back of the first of the faux leather earrings, and I'm going to put it down on my little heat pressing pad. I'm going to cover it with my little Teflon sheet. You can also use parchment paper. You really don't want this to move so that everything lines up nicely. I use a Easy Press Mini on the lowest setting, but you can also use an Easy Press. It's just a little harder to keep everything from moving around. I just put it on the lowest setting, but you'll want to match up your setting with whatever material you're using. I'm going to go ahead and just start pressing, like ironing, pressing down, moving the little Easy Press Mini around. I'm going to do this for probably 10 seconds, and then I'll see if I can peel away the layer cleanly. And let's take a look. So the trick with peeling this and not getting the vinyl all wrinkled or the foil iron-on all wrinkled is to keep the earring as flat as possible and peel away the carrier sheet. So I'm just going to peel that away, and that stays nice and flat. And there you have an earring shape with foil iron on the back. Isn't that pretty? There's the front, there's the back. And for that technique, our finished earring will look like this. I'm going to do the other earring, and then we're going to move on to the next technique. So the next technique is similar. We're going to apply the foil iron-on to the back of the bottom layer of the earrings again, but this time we're going to apply the foil onto the faux leather before we run it through the Cricut. I know it sounds kind of weird, but just go with me. So here in Cricut Design Space, we've got the third layer that's going to cut. We don't need to duplicate or copy these shapes because we're just going to cut them as usual. So I'm going to hit the Make It button. I'll make sure to mirror my earrings and hit the Continue button. I'm going to select my material, the material I always cut faux leather with. If you've seen my other videos, you know that I cut using the faux leather paper thin setting, and I changed the pressure to more. And now I'm going to show you how I set up my mat, and I'm going to show you how I put the foil iron-on onto the back of the faux leather before we cut. So in order to cut the faux leather with the foil on the back, what I did was I cut a piece of faux leather to the size shown in the mat preview screen in Cricut Design Space, so I knew what size my earrings shapes needed to cut out of. And then I cut a piece of iron-on foil just slightly smaller than the piece of faux leather. And I did that because we're going to be pressing with heat the foil onto the faux leather, and I don't want any overlap because then it'll get stuck to my mat. So I'm going to go ahead and lay this flat. I'm going to use the Easy Press Mini again. I have it on the lowest temperature setting, and I'm going to use my Teflon cover sheet. Just cover this up, and I'm going to just roll all over, rub gently. I'm going to do this for about 10 seconds. You can also do this with a regular Easy Press or even a traditional heat press, as long as the pressure isn't too high. So once we've got this all pressed down, again, I want to peel the carrier sheet away from the material. I want to try and keep the faux leather flat and just peel the carrier sheet so I don't get wrinkles. That looks pretty good. And now we're going to place this on our cutting mat. And again, if you want to see all these little tips and tricks that I'm using, like cutting the material smaller and putting my material on the mat a certain way, be sure to check out my tips and tricks to cutting faux leather video. So I'm going to put the faux leather pretty side down on my sticky purple mat in the top corner. And I'm going to put blue painter's tape down on all four sides so that it stays in place. I've already picked my material setting and I've added more pressure in Cricut Design Space, so I'm ready to load the mat. When the cut's finished, I always like to check the cut first before I unload the mat. That way I can cut it again if necessary. And I am going to lift up this corner. The cut looks pretty good, but I'm going to run it one more time anyway. You can do that as long as you haven't unloaded the mat by pressing the C button again. And let's see how these came out. There's the front, and there's the back. So there is sort of a little texturing that happens on the edges where the fine point blade is cutting through the foil, but it does add, it's sort of a pretty texture. So if you don't like that, then you're going to want to use the technique we did earlier, which is cutting the shape and just ironing it on directly. But I think it does add a nice element of interest. So that's the other technique for putting foil iron-on on the back of faux leather. And I put something like foil iron-on or heat transfer vinyl on the back of faux leather when it's thick, because I don't want to add a lot of bulk by adding a whole nother piece of faux leather. But I'm going to show you next how I put two pieces of faux leather back to back, and that's a technique that I like to use when the faux leather is thinner. So let's get started on that technique. The next way that you can put a back on faux leather earrings is to actually cut a front shape and a back shape from faux leather and attach them together. And I'm going to show you 2 ways to do that next. The reason you would want to do this is to make the earring a little thicker. So if you already are starting with thick faux leather, this is not the technique that you want to use to put something on the back. You'd want to do one of the first techniques, which is putting heat transfer vinyl or foil iron-on the back to keep the thinness and the lightness of the earring. But some faux leathers, especially Cricut faux leather, is pretty thin and it needs some sturdiness. So if you need to bulk up your earring, this is a good technique to try. So again, in Cricut Design Space, I only have the bottom layer visible. I've already cut the top 2 layers. I'm just going to click on these bottom layers and I'm going to duplicate them. And I'm going to click up here on the flip button and flip horizontal, and that will mirror them. And I don't need to change the color because I want them all to cut on the same mat. I'll click the Make It button, and that'll put all 4 of my faux leather shapes on one mat. I'm going to go ahead and prepare my mat and send the mat through the cutter, and I'll show you how to attach the front to the back 2 different ways in the next step. So I've cut out the 4 earring shapes, 2 fronts and 2 backs, and I'm going to show you how I glue them together. This faux leather is pretty thin, so this is going to be a great material to glue front to back. I like to use art glitter glue. It's a kind of fabric glue. It dries clear and it doesn't have any glitter in it. You can use any fabric glue you like, but I like art glitter glue because it has this little precision tip and I can glue in very small places. So I'm just going to place glue on the back. I want to get close to the edge because I know some of it's going to seep closer toward the edges, but I don't want to make a mess. So I'll kind of just get glue all over the back. And then place the top on and press down all over. And then I'm going to want to place this under something heavy like a book for at least a few hours, but preferably overnight. And that little seam will get a lot smaller when it's pressed down, and it'll get a lot flatter and stiffer. So I'm going to go ahead and glue the other earring, and then I'll show you the next technique for putting faux leather on the front and the back. The other way that you can attach 2 layers of faux leather front to back is by using a product called Heat and Bond. It comes in a package like this, and it's paper. It's got a paper backing and an adhesive layer. So the shiny layer, if you can see that, is the adhesive, and then there's a paper backing. So I just cut a small piece, again the size of my earring shapes that are going to cut. There's the paper on the back and the adhesive on the front. And I'm going to run it through the Cricut by using the pink cutting mat. I'm going to put it adhesive side up so the paper is what's sticking down on the mat. And in Cricut Design Space, I'm just going to use the same shapes, that bottom layer that I've been using, and I'm going to select freezer paper as the material setting. So we'll just run this through and it'll cut out the perfect shapes. So really all you need is this adhesive layer. I don't need the paper backing. And I'm going to take the earring shape and just line it up. You don't want any of the adhesive to stick out the edges or else it will come out the sides. I'm going to put the top layer on. And then I'm going to use my heat pressing pad. You can use your easy press. You can even use a home iron if you needed to. I'm going to cover with a Teflon sheet. And again with the Easy Press Mini on the low setting. And I'm just going to iron firmly on one side for about 5 seconds. Flip it over and iron on the other side. And that's it. The front and the back are attached. So I've just finished putting the jump rings and the earring hooks on these earrings, these triple layer petal earrings. Again, this design can be found in my shop if you want to get this earring template and make this style of earrings yourself. I'm not going to show you how I put the earring findings on, but I will link to another video where you can watch exactly how I do that step by step. But doesn't that look pretty with the foil on the back? And that's it. That's 4 different ways to put a back on faux leather earrings. I hope you found that information helpful, and if not knowing what to put on the back of your faux leather earrings has been stopping you from trying out this really fun and easy jewelry making craft, I hope that now you have the information you need to go ahead and give faux leather earring making a try. Just a reminder, I have lots of more tutorials and free SVG cut files on my blog, amyromeo.com. And if you'd like to see more videos like this when I put out new videos every week, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. And I'll see you in the next video.